Hello, and welcome to Havoc Wargaming, dedicated to bringing you the uncommon. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ron, and today we're going to do a preview of the new Kickstarter for Force of Virtue from Masterstroke Games. So let's get started. Masterstroke's game, Force of Virtue, has gained a cult fame in the wargaming world, and it's a pretty popular game with me. And with that in mind, with the Kickstarter just having started this morning as of the day I'm filming this, I thought I would help promote the game and give you the opportunity to participate in that Kickstarter if you are interested. The game is, I think, about a year or 2 years old. I'm not sure how old it is now. It's become very, very popular in my club. We're playing it very regularly. It's a very good game. It deserves far greater attention than it's been getting. It's been starting to be shown a little bit on Beasts of War, as I just alluded to. They got a lot of fame by having allied with Ashura Models for a project that was first previewed at Salute, 2 months ago now, and that is the Gadera Siege. This is a project that's actually being done by the town of Gadera in Italy to build a large-scale model of the whole medieval village and its walls and the whole thing. That appeared at Salute, where the game that was being run to do the siege was Force of Virtue. Now the model is at Gadera Castle. It's going to be available for rent for wargamers to play on. In fact, in the Kickstarter that I'm pushing here, there's one of the levels you can buy is for a holiday to play on that Gadera table. Phenomenal work, that table by Ashura Models. Great company anyway. And I haven't talked about them, I don't think, a whole lot here. I do have some things from them. If you followed my page at all recently, you'll have seen some Force of Virtue videos. Force of Virtue is, as I mentioned, it's a relatively new game. The Gassmans who wrote it, I hope that's the right pronunciation. The two of them, Sam and Jack, they are stuntmen, they are horsemen, they are reenactors and fencers in a historic European martial arts association. And so they brought a new level of understanding to this game, and it's based around the concept of the virtues, which are similar to the more well-known classical virtues. It's prudence, speed, audacity, and fortitude. And the game is all designed around that in a very medieval feeling or early Renaissance feeling sense. It's a cool concept, and it's unlike any other game that I'm familiar with. So now they're entering into Kickstarter. It just started as of today. I'm going to try to get this video up as fast as I can. I'm recording today on Tuesday, the 25th of June, and the Kickstarter has just started this morning. So I'm going to try to get this up so you can take advantage of the Kickstarter if you're interested. The Kickstarter is for promoting their new siege rules and their cavalry rules, but they're including a whole set of the revised rule book and the revised two-player sets or beginning sets with non-specialized dice and the new cardboard tokens. So it could be a very good opportunity to get into the game if you've been thinking about it. The only challenge really with this game is it is a card-based game, not driven. I almost said card-driven, but that's not really what I meant. The cards are your character sheets for the game. They're also your points system for the game. They therefore handle your campaign rules for the game. They are the building blocks that you build your force and how the force works. And any unit in the field is built off of a maximum, they say, this is actually a misleading maximum, but a maximum of 3 decks of cards, 2 nation cards and a character deck. Why I said it's misleading is you can always replace cards from those 3 decks with cards from the scenario decks to give it a more scenario feel. I'm not going to go a whole lot of detail about all of what I just meant or what those decks mean. I've done that elsewhere here on the channel. I'll try to put a link to that up here. But suffice to say that this is extending it into these other realms. Now, if, like me, you wondered how a small level skirmish game was going to be able to portray a siege, well, I've got the answer for that. I'm not going to get into a lot of details here. I don't have the present rules. I have an early beta set of the working rules for the siege. But the siege is done somewhat abstractly. It's done as a campaign. You have a map that describes what your siege area is, and it's going to consist of theaters. at least 2 theaters, but it can be number of theaters over that. And what they mean when they're referring to theaters is, for instance, a town or a castle or a city. The city can contain a castle. Then the next zone or next theater you would think of would be the besieging army's camp. Another example of a useful theater would be the hinterlands, where both sides are sending men out to try to find recruits and supplies to keep supporting their sides of the siege. So the actual game is played in these theaters, which are then further broken down into a number of zones. And so the actual games that you'll play are skirmish level games, where you're trying to achieve the goals of your commanding officers in the siege. There's also a system so you can randomly roll, and there's a card deck you can use to affect what your support assets are, what things are available to you, ladders, and some of that will be played in the actual game if you're doing, say, a siege on the walls itself, attempting to take a wall. But others can be used to roll the game out, so you can determine it without playing a game if you want. The idea of the games, though, is that's the capos themselves, the actual characters entering in to direct the role of their men specifically. That's going to be to give you an option to put them in the field and to, say, take out a bombard that's threatening the wall, or to try to take one of the walls, or to travel in the hinterlands to try to gain supplies, or to stop the opponent from finding supplies. There's also a great little bit of treachery in there that involves agents. You can only enter into a zone occupied by somebody else without conflict if you're an agent or you're being guided by an agent. There's great ideas for doing scenarios where you're trying to take out the enemy's commanders, and you now have a whole little series of one of their mini campaigns where you have to find where he's going to be and work it out, and then actually take out the leader. So that's kind of what you're doing. You're still playing in a skirmish level game. I'm going to show a game, in fact, where I don't even have a wall or many siege things put together yet for the game, but building around this further idea of how that's going to work. So that's one of the selling points of the new thing. It's pushing for the siege rules that were designed directly for Gadera. That's going to include the basic Gadera rules. There's also a deck of siege cards that give you the assets that are available to the other sides. Your bombards, for instance, your ladders, the various pieces of equipment that are necessary. I have here some advanced copies of the decks, the other decks that are being made. So I mentioned there is a basic siege deck. I do not have that one. But it looks like from the list that that's going to be mostly the equipment you need to pull off a siege. Then there's this deck. This is a scenario deck called Seige of Gadera. The scenario decks, there's only one previous to this, which is the Rise of the Borgias. And these are cards that are designed to make the game more specific to the scenario you're playing. In this case, I wouldn't argue these cards are necessarily specific to Gadera. Well, some of them are by the little comments and quotes on them, but they're more specific to a siege sort of environment. So there's cards like Wet Powder. Play on an opponent's cards armed with an arquebus. You must either discard the arquebus or deploy from the board edge of your opponent's choice, beginning of round 3. Driving Rain. Local residence. Pick a building on the board. This is the residence of one of your capos, or of one of his paramours. If the attacker makes a hard interaction with his terrain, the house has been ransacked or burnt. The Gadera player loses a victory point. There's a point system for the campaign aspect of the siege game. You have a certain number of victory points, and supply points, and troop points. So these cards work like the normal cards, but they're very tempting loot. Last line of defense, evacuation. Donkey, that was invented by people in my club. There's a couple cards that have worked their way into the game, or things that my friend Evan has been experimenting with. A lot of roles for civilians, armed civilians, scared civilians, for civilian, respected civilian, unruly mob. So this deck looks like a lot of fun to me, and that's going to be to put some of the random things in. One of the things that's an optional rule in the rules as they stand, at least right now, is to pull 6 cards out of your scenario deck, and then you take turns choosing each, in a normal 2-player game, each choosing 3 of those. The other deck, new deck, is the Siege Attacker deck. And maybe there's a Defender deck too, I don't know. But if there is, I don't have access to it. These are Again, certain attacking, there's an intrigue, one slash and burn. Play when you move into contact with a building behind the wall. Your capos may make an easy interaction with them to set them on fire as flammable terrain. Looter's monster cannon, that allows you to upgrade your bombard into a more powerful cannon. A number of things like that. Boiling liquid. So these are all more like normal tactical cards. I'm not sure how. I think that's used in the assets part of the game, but I'm not actually clear on that right now. But going back to what I was saying earlier about taking advantage, if you're a player of this game and you want to expand into using the horse rolls or the siege rolls, this is definitely something to do. But if you've been looking at getting into the game just in general, the cards are what cost money in this game. I just bought a second Condottiere deck, and it was $20, which is a lot of money for a card deck. And like I was saying earlier, for a normal side, you're going to need like at least 3 decks. So there's a bit of investment on that score. The game itself doesn't have a high investment. It's going to be a little higher with the Siege game. They suggest about twice as the number of figures. So they're, instead of maybe 12 guys aside, you might have 25 for a small game with the Siege. So it is going to require a few more figures. But I mean, a box of Perry will give you that for a side. So it's easy to get your feet in as far as figures go. Terrain, you probably already have usable terrain around. Maybe a little less so with some of the more obvious siege aspects of the rolls. I'm looking for mantlets and building up my defensive siege works. I do not have a siege tower or mangonels or any of that stuff. And I have parts to make a castle, but I haven't begun it yet. So there's a level you can invest in the Kickstarter that's just the new things, which is what I did. That's giving you the new rule book. There's a revised rule book, made a little easier to follow. It's also a ring bound, so it'll lay flat on the table when you're playing. I think it's still about the same size, an improved set of the rolls. That still comes with the game, but instead of getting all the beginning stuff, you can just get the new things for the Siege and the horse rolls. But if you don't have any of it, there's also things that'll give you one of the starter sets for one side or various options. In fact, really interestingly, and unlike probably any other Kickstarter I've ever seen, 2 of the top levels of support, one of those includes playing a game of Force of Virtue on that Gadera table that I mentioned earlier in Gadera, the Gadera holiday package. And also there's a package to go to a training camp as a medieval cavalryman. So that's pretty exciting. The Kickstarter so far has been very popular. By the time I woke up this morning, they're in Ireland, so they're a couple hours ahead of us. But by the time I woke up in the morning, they had already made their goal. They made their goal, I think, within a half hour. I haven't mentioned the horses, and I think I should. I was a little worried about the horse rolls when I first started to see them. They're using movement templates, and I was worried that might be a little fiddly because this game has entirely avoided that sort of fiddly thing in the past. But one of the shortfalls as a horseman that I see in an awful lot of games is how they handle horses. Jack and Sam are horsemen, and they've actually used horses in simulated medieval combat. I believe at reenactments, I know in movies. And they have allowed for a system in which the horsemanship of the rider is important, the temperament of the individual animal is important. Crazy things can happen, or a horse can do amazing things. The templates are for radius, though a horse can't move as freely at different speeds as a person can. In the end, I think it'll make it a much better game. I still haven't tried the horse rolls. I've seen them play, but I haven't played them myself. I'm having a set of templates made right now. When I have those templates, I'll try to show you some of the horse things. I think there must be cards for the horse game too, but I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure I saw horse cards on their Discord channel. That's going to be an exciting addition, even if you're not interested in doing Siege. This is a medieval period. There need to be horse rolls. So I'm going to do a video soon of a game using some of these new rolls, but I thought I'd start by just talking about the Kickstarter, showing you some of the images off of the Kickstarter and some of the products as I have, and some links to my old things. to save some time so that you can get on, if you're interested, and participate in that Kickstarter before it's too late. I really hope some of you will take an opportunity to do so. It's a great game. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you've enjoyed the video, I hope you'll hit like. And if you'd like to continue to receive videos like this one, it may give you a better idea how to spend your money or time in your tabletop wargaming hobby, then I hope you'll hit subscribe and ring our notification bell. Till next time, cheers.